You may not know who this woman is, but she had an enormous impact on Northumberland County. Her name is Emily Howland. At the end of the Civil War, she and her father moved from Washington to Heathsville and bought about 100 acres near what is now the intersection of Courthouse Road and Knights Run. With the help of several black families that also moved from Washington, they built this, the Howland Graded School, completed in 1867. It served as a church for the beginnings of First Baptist Church, but its main mission was as a school for the children of former slaves. In July 2025, the Howland Chapel Committee held an event on school grounds where people associated with the school talked about how they and their ancestors received a wonderful education that launched them in life. Here are some of the excerpts.
We have the one that knows everything about this corner, and is a former student, and that's Carrington Brumley, who will give you some interesting information.
Now, cuz, everything?
Not everything, no.
Everything. I started at Howland Graded School in 1953. And me, I can clearly remember you saying your father advised people, don't buy cars, put your money in something that's going to have some value. And one of our cousins had just got out of service, and he had a brand new Chevrolet, right. And he'd stop right there and park in front of the store and let it sit there and idle. And he had a chrome pipe on it, and he said, see that? Says that gives it 5 more horsepower. And I believed that for years. But nonetheless, we walked here with me and my sister, who had already started. I guess it's at least 3/4 of a mile. It seems like a mile because it starts out straight uphill, and then uphill, and then around that turn, and then you're running because the bell's ringing. And I didn't have the benefit of Mrs. Emily Howland, Mrs. Emma Roan teaching me, but I had the benefit of having her come, and Emma Roan was Pastor Henry Roan, who started the original, didn't start the original, but was a former pastor and very instrumental and very valuable in the community. His wife had just retired, and the parsonage sat above where our cars are, and she would come over and substitute for us sometimes. So we had my first teacher was Mrs. Bennett. Can't remember her first name. What was her first name? Miss Bennett's first name. You remember? Eleanor Bennett.
I didn't remember something.
Yes. I've had the honor of recruiting and training the last chief of police that DC had. That was Chief Conti. I spent 30 years, I'm credited with 30 years of military service, 3 actual and 27 of reserves, and 27 actual years on the police department.
So, I am happy to say we have 2 of the great-granddaughters of the first pastor of First Baptist Church, was Marquette Payne and Marianne Payne. Marquette.
Life back then was not easy for anyone, but despite the hardships, I don't recall the kind of chaos or hatred that we see in the world today. Instead, people had so much love and respect for one another. We cherished what little we had, and we shared it with our neighbors and friends. And First Baptist Church was a sanctuary, a place filled with peace, love, and a true sense of safety. Maybe it was the spirit of our ancestors, like the first pastor of First Baptist Church, my grandfather, Reverend Daniel Payne, that made church feel like home. One thing I deeply regret is not asking my parents, because I didn't know the Payne grandparents and older relatives, more about our family history when I was younger. I never gave it much thought until later in life. To learn about my heritage, I spent hours at the Northumberland County Courthouse reading cover to cover the single book, one book, available about Black history in this area. Then one Sunday, after our church anniversary celebration, Sister Thelma Roan told me about a book that was written by my great uncle. I later discovered he had actually written a book, Recollections of a Former Slave, and it was published in 1881. His writings help fill in many of the gaps in my understanding, and is one of the few books that is published by a Negro. My great uncle Lindsay Payne was one of 11 children, and the brother of Reverend Daniel Richard Payne, who pastored at First Baptist Church for 33 years, up until his death in 1866, and helped found another church in the area known as New St. John Baptist Church, pastored by Reverend Peyton Waller. Through my reading, I learned that my Uncle Lindsay, who was born into slavery, was later sold to a slave owner in Heathsville, and he hired him as a cook on a ship, and he later escaped.
Amazingly, the school still stands after all these years and continues to function as a community center associated with First Baptist Church of Heathsville. Plans call for the school and the teacher's cottage to one day be made into a museum.